of all images that really puts the entire immune system into perspective. So this is the inside of the body. Here's a bunch of cells on the skin. The bacteria make contact with that. When they're in, they get opsoninated, so they get covered in immunoglobulins. And then the phagocytes come in and they phagocytize them. And so then the T4 helper gets communicated. The T4 helper then releases cytokines that turns on the beta lymphocytes. The beta lymphocytes release plasma cells and antibodies are created. That's not hard. Complement gets initiated, right? And it forms this membrane attack complex, right? And remember, the membrane attack complex looks like this. There's these proteins that get embedded in the plasma membrane and causes cells to leak and the cells die. There is no way that you get sick very often. I mean, I got sick this week thanks to Christy. But my immune system was so in tune, Rachel, that in one day I feel much better, right? Because everything worked the way it's supposed to. Okay? Any questions? You should know complement. You should know about membrane attack complexes. You should know about how the immune system works. Immunity will take up 60% of the entire exam. It is that important. And then determinants of health and disease will take up 20, and epidemiology, who you're going to look at, if you haven't looked at already, you're going to review that video, and that's going to take up another 20%. Okay? Okay? And you voted, it will be all objective, multiple choice matching. It'll be ready for you. Okay? So, additionally, there is another part of the of immunity that we need to talk about, and that's the importance of adaptive immunity or acquired immunity. And this is the immunity that you develop throughout your entire life by coming in contact with a non-self entity. You either come in contact with them because you get an infection, or you come in contact with them because you get vaccines. Okay? So in order for us to acquire immunity, our immune system has to be able to recognize non-self. What's the function? Which of the cells recognize non-self? The cytolytic cells in the T4 helper, right? Okay. It has to be the infectious agent has to have antigenic specificity. It has to be specific, right? Because our immune system are going to build proteins against those specific non-self entities, right? You with me? That's why our immune system will not destroy cancer cells, because the cancer cells do not have antigenic specificity. They have the same specificity that we have. So it's not different than anything that we have in our body. It's labeled the same way. So cancer doesn't get destroyed by the immune response. And then lastly, acquired immunity has to develop memory. And what that means is that our cytolytic cell, our T cells and our antibodies are forever once we come in contact with an infectious agent. And our body doesn't recognize an infectious agent as different than a vaccine. It recognizes them both the same, they're non-self. Right? So this is my favorite diagram. It shows us acquired immunity. So if we look at them, you can see there's naturally acquired and artificially acquired, and then there's active or passive. Let's talk about active first. Active, once you develop immunity actively, it is for life. You have it forever, okay? And the way you can do that is naturally by coming in contact with an infectious agent, and then your body going through the entire process of destroying the infectious agent. The infectious agent is going through the infectious process, but your immune system is tackling that by countering that particular infectious agent and destroying it. But then you develop IgG and IgGs for life, okay? You can do that, you can acquire immunity actively, artificially. And that's by taking an immunization. I'm a big proponent for vaccines because I know they work. And the immune system doesn't recognize whether it's an infectious agent or a piece of the infectious agent. It just recognizes them as being non-self, and it's going to treat them the same way. Okay? So, actively acquired immunity, whether it's artificial or natural, is for life. You have it forever. Let's talk about passive now. So you can develop immunity naturally, acquire immunity naturally, passively, and that happens two ways. Either from the immunoglobulins that can go through the placenta and protect the infant, or by breastfeeding. Breastfeeding has a lot of really good nutrients. Breast milk has a lot of good nutrients, and you get immunoglobulins from them. And those immunoglobulins will protect the baby, right? Because the baby hasn't had enough life experience that it hasn't started to make its own immunoglobulins yet, so it gets mothers. Now, anything that's passively acquired is for short term. It's not going to last forever because these immunoglobulins were not made by the infant's body. It was made by the mama's body, and they have a different half-life.'s nothing in it that initiates them. There's no signal that goes off and says these belong to us. Let's make more of them. So they wean over a period of time. Okay, so that is acquiring it naturally, right? Now, IgM is too big and will not go through the placenta. Okay. You can acquire immunity artificially, passively, by taking convalescent plasma or immune cells or immune proteins from somebody else. And they can be done, I got it subcutaneously, but you can also take it intravenously. Okay? Good. So I've got some slides that come after this that I'm going to pass up because I've already talked about this and I'm not going to go over it again. But they're here for you to have better understanding. Right? There's naturally acquired active immunity, there's naturally acquired passive immunity, here's artificially acquired immunity. This is Jonas Salk. Jonas Salk is one of my heroes. He developed 3 good vaccines when he was alive. The 2 that are most famous are influenza and polio, right? So polio, right before COVID, we only had 2 countries in the world that still had polio. We were going to get rid of it. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was going to get rid of it, but then COVID hit and we stopped doing all that work for polio because we were working on COVID then. So now we're back to where there's 5 countries that have polio, but we believe that we'll be able to get rid of polio forever. What a great thing. Okay? And then we have artificially acquired passive immunity, which is a gamma globulin. How many people have ever heard of a gamma globulin? Gamma globulin are immunoproteins. They're IgG from a bunch of different people, like over 1,000, right? And so we process these and we put them in this little vial. They're sterile. And then when somebody gets, well, for 2 reasons. Number one, when somebody gets exposed to a really bad infectious agent like HIV, they get gamma globulin. The second thing that can happen is if you're going to travel to a place in the world where there's a lot of different infectious agents, you can take gamma globulin, but it has to be from that region, right? If you're going to go to, I don't know, India, and there's other infectious agents, what's the most common infection you've seen in India, do you think? Tuberculosis? TB. So if you're going to go there, you can take gamma globulin to protect you against tuberculosis. But you have to only take that from the region, so the people in that region are going to be more protected. We don't have as much TB in the States. We do have it, but not as much. So it would be better to take it from that region. Likewise, if you were going to go to a place in the world where cholera was, we have no cholera in the States. So therefore, you have to get it from the region that you're going to go so that you can get that protection. Okay? Questions? So, I got it before intramuscularly. At last, it's short term because these are immunoglobulin, these are IgG from somebody else. You don't have any signals that keep them going, so they do have a half-life and they will perish, right? So these are only going to be just for a little while. You can take these intramuscularly or you can take them intravenously. Okay? And then we have anti-sera and antitoxins. So we do have like anti-sera, we call it anti-venom for snake bites. The more common snake here that we run into that might cause us a lot of trouble is a rattlesnake. And so there's an anti-sera or an anti-venom for rattlesnake. However, if you go to the hospital and you have to, if you go to the hospital, ER, and you were snake bit and you know it's a rattlesnake, and they give you anti-venom for rattlesnake, it's gonna cost about $30,000.
Why?
Because it can. Because it can be that expensive. First of all, the insurance will pay for it. Why? Because if you got bit by a rattlesnake, you were doing something that was dangerous. That's right. Walking in a backyard in Bastrop is dangerous. Right? So you just gotta be careful, Rachel, that when you go into grassy lands, I have a little stick and I walk with the stick. And I call it my snake beater. Now, I don't beat the snake, but I call it a snake beater because when I play golf with some people, they all have sticks. And when they go looking for the ball, because we're not very good, our ball end up all kinds of places. But they go in there with the stick, and if they find a snake, we just move it away. We don't kill it. We just move it away. I walk around my property with a stick that's long enough that I don't have to like get close to it, right? But I want to get rid of it, and I'll just move it, let it go someplace else. So you just gotta be really, really careful. Okay? So vaccines are important, and really, in my opinion, I'm a big proponent for vaccines. I'm not trying to change your mind. If you're anti-vax, that's your deal, right? What I'm gonna tell you is I've worked in pharmaceuticals, I've worked in microbiology, I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in medical fields, I've worked in ecology, I've worked all kinds of different places, and I'll tell you that, and I even worked for a company that made vaccines. I'll tell you that vaccines work. But not everybody's going to believe that. Sometimes we add an adjuvant to the actual vaccine, and the adjuvant is usually a salt, and it's an irritant. So when they inject you, right, there are two types of vaccine. One of them is called an aqueous form, and it's mostly water, but then it has a little bit of protein in it. So then they inject that. It doesn't hurt. The other one stings when they put it in you because it's got glycerin in it. And the glycerin, when they put it inside of you, it stings when it goes in. On top of that, we can add an adjuvant. An adjuvant is kind of a salt. And the salt, when it gets injected into you, it causes irritation. It causes you to like itch it. But what that really does internally is it causes the cell-mediated immune response to jump into action. And then you'll have a quicker immune response. Okay? Good? If you take a vaccine, you should wait 10 minutes before you go home. Because if you're going to have a reaction to the vaccine, it's going to happen in the first 3 minutes. So once you get past 5 minutes, probably nothing's going to happen. Sit there 5 more minutes. It's not very long, Miss Brito. Hang out there for 5 more minutes, and after 10 minutes, go do whatever you got to do. There's not going to be any reaction. Okay? So if we think about it, lots of people talked about how during COVID, we were all guinea pigs to the vaccines because we didn't have a lot of experience with it. That's not true. We have been working on coronavirus for 50 years when COVID hit. We knew a lot about it. All we needed was the genome and some protein, and we got them both. We got the genome from the Chinese, and we got the spike protein from a researcher in UT. Once we had those two things, we could make vaccines. But before we could give it to anybody, because I would have taken it right then and there, before we can give it to anybody, it has to go through clinical trials. So it goes through phase 1. We got about 100 individuals. They look for, is the vaccine safe? Does it seem to work? Are there any serious side effects? And what is the size of dose that the side effects are related to? Okay? If it gets past that, then it goes to phase 2. So now we have several hundred volunteers. It's a cross section. They don't say, hey, Harlow, we want you to be a participant, and why don't you bring all your family with you? Right? It's not that at all. It is a mixture of all different kinds of people in the United States from all over the United States. So there'll be some people from the northwest, from the east-west, or east northeast. There'll be people from the south. There'll be people from all over the places, and they'll take a look at all that. Now they're asking what's the most common short-term side effects, and how are the volunteers' immune systems responding to the vaccine? Does it take them? How long does it take them to start to develop IgG? Right. If it gets past that one, then it goes to phase 3, and then this is thousands of people. Now it can be hundreds because for some of the less communicable types of infectious agents, some of the tropical agents, there might be 100 cases in the entire year for the entire world. We can't get 1,000 people, right? We're going to get just a little bit. But if we think about it, we're looking, how do people get the vaccine? How do people? What's the difference between those who get it and those who do not? So we have a placebo. It's double blind. So the person who gives the vaccine doesn't know if they're giving you a placebo or the vaccine, and the person who's getting the vaccine doesn't know what they got either. So there's only one person, the program director, who knows the answer, right? That way there's no bias. So then they look for, is the vaccine safe, is the vaccine effective, and what are the most common side effects? And they start to develop a profile for the vaccine. And then if it meets all that standard, then it can be used in the population. So it went through a lot of testing before it got used, right? And so there are different types of vaccines. The new kid on the block is the messenger RNA vaccine. So of course you see DNA and RNA vaccines. These work really well. Live attenuated, not my favorite. I don't want them. And the reason I don't want them is because the organism is still alive, it's just weakened. So it acts like it normally would, but it doesn't have any of its pathogenic properties. But the problem with this one, in very rare cases, it can revert to virulence. What does that mean?
What did you say?
It can revert to virulence. What does that mean? It can cause the infection that it's supposed to be protecting you against. That happened with polio. It happened in the 1950s. There's a book about it. It's called the Cutter Incident. If you want a nice read, like when you're over the summer, Harlow, if you're not doing anything, you might want to read a book. The Cutter Incident. It's really great. It talks a story about the time that we made a mistake. And they never let us forget it, right? Once these people made the mistake, the anti-vaxxers just keep harping on that all the time, even though we haven't had another incident like that in the United States since the 1950s. Okay? There has been an incident in the Middle East where a company made a vaccine for polio, and it wasn't very good, and the World Health Organization warned everybody not to use that vaccine. The problem is a couple of these countries had already spent a lot of money on these vaccines, so they started to give it to their people because they thought there was low probability of people got sick. Okay? So that one is off Provy's list. I don't like it. Okay? The others I like. Inactivated means the organism is dead. Yep.
Where would you get that second one? Do they offer it?
They offer it like in the, they usually offer it in the flu vaccine. It's the intranasal one. You know what I'm talking about? The one that goes in your nose. You never had a vaccine like that? I don't like them either. They don't work. I'd rather get the one that in the arm. Okay? I'll show you a list of them and maybe we can find them. So inactivated means they're completely dead. This works. It's, if it's sometimes, like in this case with subunits, it's just a part of the cell. Now, if this part of the cell gets into the body, the immune system is going to see this and say it doesn't belong here, and it's going to create antibodies against it. And even though it's just this little piece of the cell's going to get attacked because it's going to be attacking that part of the cell. So it works effectively. Okay? And then the last part is a viral vector, where we take some virus like the cold virus, and we take away its ability to create the cold, but we allow it to fuse with other cells and then deliver some antigen that the immune system can actually make an antibody against, and they work. Right? It's the one we've done forever until the messenger RNA vaccines came to be, and then we started doing those. Right? So you can see the viral vector, that's what J&J did with their COVID vaccine. And you know, I told you the story already, J&J's COVID vaccine was crazy bad, right? But the other two, Moderna and the Pfizer-BioNTech one worked really great. Right? So here they are. You can see the Pfizer-BioNTech had a 95% protection rate. The Moderna one had 94%. J&J was way down here at 66. Right? That would be good for me if it wasn't, like if it didn't have all these other side effects, but it had some side effects, right? And so therefore I told my family members, only get the Pfizer-BioNTech, that's the one you want, and if you can't get that one, get Moderna. I didn't like Moderna as much because it hurt a lot more, right? And people complained about it. And I didn't want to give people advice, doc, and then they came back and said, you gave me advice, but now my hand and my whole arm is sore and I can't move my fingers. I didn't want that, right? So I said, take the Pfizer-BioNTech. They work great. Anybody have questions?
Why did it hurt more? What's the reason?
I'm not real sure. It's one of the components in there made us so that we reacted, would produce more, more lactic acid, if you will. Just produce more reaction to it. It worked really great. I mean, 94% is really good, right? But it hurt. Okay. And so here you can see that there were a lot of people who weren't willing to take the vaccine. So Greenland and China and some parts of Africa, we got no data. So we couldn't really, they're gray, we can't really tell. But if you look at the United States, like 50% of the people in the United States will not take the vaccine. And that's because it became political. And whether or not you believe in science, if you were a certain political affiliation, you just didn't take it. Because then you'd be made fun of by everybody else in your family or whatever, right? Yes, Ms. Britta.
Why did we, like for COVID, why was there 3 vaccines?
There were 3 vaccines.
Yeah, and what did they change with each?
They didn't change anything. Well, they were different, right? So the 3 vaccines for us that were available were the Pfizer-BioNTech, the Moderna, and the J&J one. This other one, I never even heard of it. I don't know if anybody got it. I never heard of it. But the 3 that were most commonly used were the Pfizer-BioNTech, the Moderna, and both of these were the same platform. They were messenger RNA, right? This other one by J&J was a viral vector. It was this type of vaccine, and it didn't work that. And usually we have really good efficacy with that type of vaccine. We just didn't with the J&J. Okay? Anybody else? Okay, so you can see here, the Russia stuff is, I don't know how much I believe that because they weren't sharing information. And China definitely didn't share information. So you can see that there were some countries out there. India did a really good job, right? They, less than 20% of them didn't take the vaccine. That's pretty good. For a country that has, I don't know, how many people are in India? A billion? Somewhere around there? There's a lot of people. So, I mean, United States, think about it. The United States has about 330 million people. India has a billion. Here's, put that into perspective. India has more honor students than we have students. Think about that for a minute.
Wait, can you repeat that?
India has more honor students than we have students. And that's something that this should not be taken lightly. In other words, there's a lot of smart people in India. Okay? We have one of them right there. Right? Okay? So it's pretty interesting to think about how that works. Here is kind of the principles of vaccine preparation. For vaccines, it should have a low level of adverse side effects or toxicity. It should protect against exposure to the natural and wild forms of the pathogen. It should stimulate both B cells and T cells. It should have long-term lasting effects, produce memory. It should not require numerous boosters, and it should be inexpensive. It is relatively cheap to make a vaccine. But then you start to sell it, and instead of $5.80, it becomes $140 all of a sudden. So why is that? Well, that's because that's the way capitalism works. Some people get rich, some people don't. Yeah. Our healthcare system in the United States is not good. The people who need the most help don't have access to it. The people who don't need it have the most access to it. And that's pretty sad. So if we look here, these are all the different types of vaccines that are available. And I'm trying to see if there's one that is, it doesn't say, inactivated, recombinant. Here's an attenuated. So we attenuated the typhoid fever one and the tuberculosis, BCG. We do not give the BCG in the States at all. Does anybody know why? It works. And it not only works for TB, it works for leprosy also. But the reason we don't give the BCG in the United States is because it interferes with our screening tools. Right? We have the tuberculosis skin test, right? And if you got the vaccine, you would test positive for the TB test all the time. Good? All right. So, if we think about it, there's several ways to get the vaccines, right? And so, you can get it subcutaneously, intramuscularly, or intradermally. You can also get it intranasally. I don't like those, but if you want to, you can. They did those mostly for the kids who don't like to get shots, right? I'm like, it doesn't hurt for about like a second. Just get the shot, you know, but people don't. Does anybody have kiddos that doesn't like to get shots?
I mean, she's a no.
Huh?
She's like,
I mean, who likes
I do. I love it. It's time for my vaccine. Every September 1st, I'm like, I walk into HEB, I go, give me flu here, give me COVID there, go. Yeah. So one time, like one person gave me the flu and the other one came in afterwards and gave me flu on this side. I got 2 flu shots. I'm like, she goes, okay, I just gave you the flu. I said, I had that one right over here. She goes, oh. I said, went back and I said, oh, we're so sorry, sir, we gave you 2 flu shots. I'm like, well, you better give me the COVID one now. Put it on tap over here. I said, and you better not charge me for that second flu shot. Well, you're not going to get charged. It's the insurance. I'm like, the insurance better not get charged for a second. Oh, no, we'll take care of it. But I mean, you can't overdose on a vaccine.
Really?
No.
What if you feel like 10?
What do you feel like that?
10.
Tense?
10. 10
You got 10
vaccines.
of them.
Why would you do that? You're just silly. If you sit there for 10 times, something might be wrong with you. I think maybe we ought to get you checked out.
Definition of insanity.
Miss Brito?
Brody,
Yeah?
why do you say that the intranasal ones still aren't as effective?
I don't think they're effective. I mean, the data tells me they're not effective, right? Now, every year they come up with a new one.
Unless you're getting like Narcan or something.
Do not do that.
Why?
Because Narcan is only good if you're like overdosing on
Right.
some opioid.
Yeah. Then that's effective. I've never done it. I'm
But
just
she's
saying.
talking about a vaccine, Christy.
I know.
I just, looking at the data, it just doesn't appear to me like it's effective.
Why do you think that is?
Huh?
Why do you think that is? Like, why is it?
Because the efficacy is like 68%.
Because a lot of it's lost. So
I have no idea. It's just bunky.
Yeah.
No, Harlow, sometime in the future, if you want to take an intranasal one, send me the data and say, probably, what do you think about this? And I'll send you an email back saying yay or nay. Yeah. Christy knows I respond to her all the time.
Even
So
at
like
11
Flo,
bucks.
so you're talking about like Flonase. Like
No,
that-
Flonase is not a vaccine.
I mean, oh, we're talking
about like.
We're talking about vaccines only.
Okay.
Flonase is effective, right? That's the delivery of a medication intranasally that's effective. The vaccines are not.
What vaccines do they give intranasally?
Well, the one that I'm aware of was for Staph aureus. It didn't work at all. They took it
Oh.
off the market. The other one they have done is the influenza one.
Oh, that's right, okay.
Yeah. Harlow, you're a strong woman. You should be able to take a little shot real quick.
No, I don't have a problem with
Okay,
it.
okay. Just saying.
Just
Like I remember when I was young in my career, and I was working for a doctor, and she like after like she said, I need everybody to stay for 10 minutes after work today. So we close at 6. We thought we were like gonna get a raise or something really good like that. She said, I want to give everybody their flu vaccines this today. I was like, oh goody. Everybody was like, oh no. But then she said, Felix, will you give my 2 children their vaccines? I'm like, yeah, sure. The little kids love me, right? And so I come over and I said, hey, Soph, come get your vaccine. She goes, no! And she started running, and then the little boy, like he ran around, and I had to chase him down and like hold him down and give him and the mom was like, see, that's why I asked you to do it, because I know you would be able to hold him down for a little bit. And then, but the little girl would not let me do it. And so the doc had to do it. But, then she said, you want to take one home for your wife? I'm like, yeah. So I took a vaccine home for my wife, and she said, oh, are you ready to go to dinner? I'm like, after I give you your vaccine. She goes, no! I chased her around the room for a little while too. And she finally let me. So, did I tell you the story about Shingrix? So, can you turn that off for a minute?